Telangana Raitu Sangam members. I will be not exactly the title, but I'm going to talk about 2 or 3 issues, current issues of concern. So I will start with this issue of trade, because that is coming up again and again. So first thing which is very surprising is that India's share, I'm talking only of agricultural output, India's share of world trade in agriculture is actually very small. Take most rice, India is the biggest producer. Wheat, potato, sugarcane, we are either first, second, third. In most crops, we are in the top 2. Milk, we are the biggest producer. So we are in the top 2 or 3 producers in the world. China is number 1 in some crops. US like corn or soybean, or Brazil is sugarcane maybe. So, but if we look at our share of output which is traded, so I am giving a number here which is from a very detailed article by Professor Surajit Majumdar of JNU, and he has published in our journal. This FAS is having a journal called Review of Agrarian Studies. It is recognized now by NAS also, so we are getting good, which is publishing on agrarian issues. So agriculture issues, but also linked to history, to politics, to actual people's livelihoods. So in 2020, of total world value added in agriculture, so total value of output in agriculture, forestry, fishing, hunting, India's share was 14%, but our, the North America, Japan, Europe, etc., the global north countries' share was 14%, but as share of world population, they are only 12%. China's share of trade is 30%, their share of population is 18%. And India, our share of population, as you know, global population is about 18%, 1.4 billion, but share of world output of agriculture, trade, fisheries, etc., only 13%. So China's trade is almost double what they are producing, the share. For India, our share of trade. So first thing is that trade in India is still less important. Our domestic market, our domestic economy, this is more important than trade for most of our crops. Second point, let us take exports. Only rice. We are the biggest exporter of rice. I think Telangana is also there in the world. And of total rice which is exported or traded in the world, India's share is about 28 or 30%, 1/3. All other crops, even fish, shrimp, etc., it is 4%, 2%, 3%, etc. So shrimp export may be very important for Kerala or Andhra, but of the world trade, it is still very small. Similarly, if we take imports, what we are getting from other countries or global imports, except oil seeds, and again here I think Telangana can play a role in more oil seeds. Oil seeds of total, that is all our palm oil, sunflower oil, all this oil we are importing for consumption, 44% of world trade is coming to India. So in export rice, in import oil seeds. All other things, it is pulses also we are importing quite a lot, 8%, tobacco, tea, coffee and all 6% and so on. It's much less. So I think this is the overall context we need to keep in mind, that we have not yet got a very high share of world trade, and our farmers actually could benefit if we are able to, instead of importing oil seeds, we can produce or we can export more products at higher price. So our contribution to world trade is still relatively small. Of total output of Indian agriculture, 3% is imported and about 7% is exported. Means 93% of agricultural output in India is for domestic consumption. So this is, I think, important context where we are when we start looking at impact of trade. Second point is, I come now to the trade agreements. So in 1999, as you know, World Trade Organization, WTO, we signed agreement on agriculture, AOA. Now, agreement on agriculture is a very, very unequal agreement. It is biased against not just India, but all developing countries, and biased in favor of the developed countries. Why do I say this? Two reasons. One is, there are many issues, but two main issues. We had to open up our economy, give certain amount, allow certain amount of imports. But when the time when we were opening up, agriculture in Europe and in North America, in USA, is very highly subsidized. So it was not an equal level playing field in 1999 with that agreement, but it was made as though everybody is equal. Everybody will import so much, everybody will have an export, not have subsidy for export and so on. Second is, the form the subsidy is allowed was cash subsidy. So in the US Farm Bill is there, huge amount of subsidy is given, but it is given by check to each farmer. And similarly in Europe, it is transfer payment. And so in India too, that is why this whole question of cash payment came. That let us not have MSP or minimum support price, let us transfer cash to farmers. But millions, hundreds of millions of farmers, even though we have some PM Kisan and all now, every season for every crop, if we have to transfer money, it is going to be a very, very big exercise. It is not going to be possible. And tenant farmer and so on, may not get that subsidy. So this was a very, very unequal agreement, WTO. Nevertheless, India signed, India joined, and India has been operating broadly within that WTO framework for about 20 years, 20 plus years. And all of you know agreement, WTO, much discussion has been there. Now, what has happened in the last, one important point about the WTO, that from the very beginning, there was a demand for allowing subsidy as part of food security or food security box. So WTO had this green box, blue box and all that. But India has always fought that the subsidy we are giving for rice, so the subsidy we are giving to our farmer, this is for food security. And small farmer globally is anybody with less than 10 hectares. So almost everybody in Indian farmer is fitting there. So somehow we were fighting for the food security box, and we were allowed to keep MSP, etc. But the countries, many countries, including Australia, New Zealand, Europe, North America, USA, were not happy with this arrangement. And slowly over the last 5 to 10 years, these countries are in effect withdrawing from WTO. They have not said WTO is over legally, but they are not interested in WTO, and that is why these bilateral trade agreements have come. So this FTAs and trade agreement is because US wants with India, Australia wants, UK wants, European Union. So they want individual trade agreements because they want to bypass WTO. So many people have said who are going to these WTO negotiations, Doha round, this round, that round, that US negotiators, etc., are not interested, because they are basically they are saying this is, we will ignore it, we will work outside it, slowly WTO will disappear. So this is a very important political issue to understand, that many countries who had already had advantage agreement on agriculture, now they are not satisfied with that, so they want something more, and that is why they are now withdrawing from WTO and finding bilateral agreement. I think Trump is such a crazy man. I cannot be discussing his agreement. Tomorrow it may change. It is very, very difficult. But European Union, Australia, they want India to open up milk import. As I said, India is the largest producer, and milk cooperatives all over India, small farmers only are largely supplying that milk. Milk dairies, large dairies are limited. So this will affect livelihoods of millions of people. Or import of soya, so many crops, import of maize, all these crops now, they are trying to leave WTO and make the arrangements with the bilateral agreements. And many of these bilateral agreements, the fine print is not public. We do not know yet, because they say the rules are being formulated. We do not know exactly what will be allowed. So basically our import barriers will be removed, and import of many products will come in. So import of milk and cheese, for example, cheese products, etc., from Australia, New Zealand, will really wipe out our cheese industry, which is just growing now. The processing industry in India, milk is there, but milk products is still only, not so developed, and so on. Whether it is maize, whether it is corn, whether it is soya, and so on. So there are many products now which are coming. So I'm not going to discuss any specific bilateral agreement, because that will be, we will have to go into the fine print of each. But I think the important point is, it is trying to bypass WTO and set up bilateral agreements where there is no doubt that the foreign countries, particularly Europe, Australia, North America, so the rich countries, they have a surplus production and they are looking for a market. So they want to bring it in here, and it will seriously affect, I will come to that later, livelihoods. So that is one point I wanted to make about the trade agreements. And second point I want to make is about little different, but I think also very, it's related and also very much important now. That is growth of corporates in agriculture. Some of you might have heard recently that Food Corporation of India now, the silos, they are going in for silos, which is a good thing because storage capacity is less. We know that every year there are storage problems, and simple cover and plinth type of storage, rain or hailstorm, can affect the crop. But most of the silos, majority of the silos have now been given, the contract has been given to Adani company. So I think this is, and the contract, the tender that the FCI used to put out used to have a monopoly clause that has been removed, so that one company can get 100. So what this means is that the storage, suppose tomorrow there is COVID, or I suddenly want to bring grain from one part of India to another, the private storage holder will have to agree. He or she may say, I have some other priorities, or I have already promised export, my crop is already being shipped to some other country. So in terms of national food security, this is clearly having monopoly power in the private sector for food storage is very serious. So I think this, and usually again it is linked to trade, because often it is said that, oh, Adani has port, from the silo they will build a train line, they are being given permission for that, they will take it to the port, so it will become the whole infrastructure chain for export import will be in the private hands. So while exporting is to be encouraged, I think that is not the issue if the farmer can get a better price, but how it will be or who will be controlling the export business. Now coming to corporate agriculture, I think it is very important that in India we do not have as yet corporate farming. So one of my students has recently studied sugarcane in Uttar Pradesh. In Brazil, in big sugarcane growing countries in not in South Africa, in Africa, everything is a plantation type owned by very big company, and that company is usually a multinational company. But in India, in whether it is Maharashtra or Uttar Pradesh, it is still small farmers, 5 hectares maybe, or 10 hectares at most, who are growing the sugarcane. They are selling to the corporates. The sugar mills are all owned by corporates now. The public sector mill and the cooperative mills have declined. But in terms of production, it is still small farmers or medium farmers, some large farmers. So in production, there is very little corporate agriculture in India. The corporates are not directly, there is some contract farming, but they are not directly in production as they are in many other countries. Even in developing countries like Indonesia and so on, large parts of land, rubber, etc. are under corporate control. However, corporates are there in input supply and processing. So this is what I'm going to come to next, that just to give you an example, in 2020-21, again I'm taking it from Surajit's paper, so it will be more now, but he has, I think, summarized very well how this 2026 crisis is different from earlier crisis, and especially the Ukraine war 2022, that was the last time again we had, that was really affecting wheat so much, because wheat, Ukraine, Russia, etc., big producers of wheat. Now here what has happened is that actual physical closing of this Strait of Hormuz, unfortunate killing of Indian soldiers, also sailors, but that is a different issue, that there is trade or supply of fertilizer, of the inputs for fertilizer like sulfur, even where we have Indian manufacturing, countries of the Gulf, countries of North Africa are very important in terms of phosphates, in terms of sulfur, in terms of the inputs that are coming for fertilizer. Also natural gas, which is also used for fertilizer production. So first thing is that the import of fertilizer has been affected by huge amount. About 40% of world trade in fertilizer is through the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran is controlling now. Iran is blocking, it has a right to block because it has been attacked now, and this is going to affect India. Second is that fertilizer production is very high in the Gulf countries. One is the trade. Second is fertilizer production in the Gulf countries. They are also, their gas plant is affected, drone attacks are there and so on. So fertilizer production also has got affected. That means even if trade is allowed, production for trading will be limited. So that is the third point. Second point. Third point is one of the most important inputs for fertilizer production, whether in the Gulf, whether in India, whether anywhere else, is natural gas. And we know that natural gas is coming largely from West Asia, and this natural gas price is going up and supply is not reaching us. So the availability of petroleum and natural gas uh, from Gulf countries, from West Asia for India, has been affected. And their production was also affected. The damage, some of their things have been damaged. Now, very interesting new trade phenomenon during the war on Iran is that Russia and China. So China is very interesting to study because China is keeping quiet. Yes, China has plenty of stocks, and now they are slowly releasing and using, and people outside don't even know how much stocks they are having. We have kept food stocks, but fertilizer stocks we have not planned. Russia and China have now stopped exporting fertilizer because they are keeping it for their farmers. So this is also going to affect global trade, and particularly for phosphatic fertilizer. So China has completely stopped. They have put a ban on fertilizer export, and they are focusing on their own food security. The last point on this crisis, and that is going to take me to my agrarian crisis point in India, is that unlike 2022 now, where the wheat price was shooting up. So input price is going up, but output price is also going up. Now globally, output prices are not going up, but input availability and input price is going up. So naturally there is a profit squeeze. Because output price is not increasing. If you try to export now, you are not going to get a much higher price. But all the inputs you are importing or inputs you are buying, the price is going up. So I think this is the including fuel. So we need fuel for whether it is your bore wells or your tractors. So if it is not electrified, you need petroleum, you need diesel, and this is prices, as we all know, is going up, and Indian government is not not trying to reduce the taxes on that. So what is going to happen? Let me finish this fertilizer point. Then, so from the national official statistics, we are hearing that there is enough fertilizer stocks available. So if the actually comrades have come from Raitu Sangam, they can tell us from the ground whether fertilizer is available for Kharif season. That will be a very important input into our understanding, and at what price the fertilizer is available, because sometimes that local trader, even though the stock is old, may raise the price. This is what happens when you go to the shop and you say the GST has come down or something. They say, no, this is old stocks, we will sell it at the old price. So what price is it being sold? Is fertilizer available for Kharif season? And that would be rice here for large parts of Telangana, where fertilizer is very important. I think this is one practical question on which I'll be very happy to get feedback from the audience. So now I come to my last point actually, and then if there is any short questions or discussion, I'm happy, which is that this agrarian crisis in India, what we are seeing now, fertilizer price, etc., this is a shock. But what is the existing situation? And I maybe will ask, I don't know, roughly the income from rice farmer per hectare, do we have that number in Telangana? What it will be per acre? No. After paying cost. After the cost. No, net income I am asking. 20,000. Huh? That, okay. So, there is a very interesting article recently has come out in our journal. Dr. Chowduk Fat, who you met in Trivandrum, Kaudukphat. He was Vice Minister for Agriculture in Vietnam, and he was one of the people who made Vietnam from rice importer into rice exporter. So he played a very big role in Vietnam, and he had come recently to our FAS conference in Trivandrum, and after that he has written an article on rice incomes in Asia. And I found it very useful because we are only studying about India. What is the global situation? It is important to understand. So he has calculated that in Vietnam, he has done the calculation in Thailand, which was used to be a rice exporter, in Philippines, Bangladesh, he has taken 3-4 countries. Roughly he is saying rice income, net income per hectare is $500 to $1,000 per hectare. That means we just multiply by 100 now. $1 is almost 100 rupees. So 50,000 to 1 lakh per hectare per crop. So if you have 2 crop, Kharif and Rabi or rice like in Bengal and all, then it should be double. So what you are telling me is $200 per hectare. No, 20,000 rupees divide by 100. It is $200. No, I'm talking about net income. Okay, so gross income is $1,000, what he has said. But annual, there may be 2 rice crops. That means it is 500 per rice crop, and that is only gross income. Why am I giving this? We did a study in Tamil Nadu, in Venmani, Kilvenmani village. It was a Gaja cyclone was there that year. Only 1 or 2 big capitalist farmers got $900,000. Other all got $30, $40, $50, $100 per hectare. In North India, we did a study in this village, sugarcane, rice, wheat. It is not a rice village, but they are getting, with sugarcane, they are getting over $1,000, $2,000 per hectare. So why I am taking this dollar? Not because dollar is important, but how are Indian farmers doing as compared to other farmers in Asia? Rice grower in Vietnam, in Bangladesh, in Thailand, they are getting more income per hectare. So even before we have a fertilizer crisis, or before we talk about trade, or before there is a cyclone or some climatic flood or any effect, without that, we are not getting. But in India, it is high, we are happy. But actually, our income is on average less than the rice farmer's income per hectare. On average, is less than, say, in Vietnam. And why is that? Because Vietnam, just to give an example, because there is one young scholar, my student, he did this study comparing Kerala and Vietnam. In Kerala and Vietnam, he found rice income per annum is the same. But there was a different reason. In Kerala, the state government was giving very high above MSP. So that was the reason. In Vietnam, they have to sell in the market. There is no MSP. They have gone for liberalization. But everything, agricultural extension, information, irrigation development, everything the government has done, and at the village level, they have every season agricultural extension workers coming, latest seed, latest farming practice, what is to be done. So they have transferred the technology at low cost to the farmers. So because they have controlled the cost, they are not now paying, they don't need to pay the MSP. The market price they are getting, and because of irrigation, this is in Mekong Delta, he chose that because it is like Kerala, 3 seasons of rice was there. They are having 3 rice crops a year. So 500, 1000 is per season. So end of the year that farmer is getting 3000. So we have not invested in making the latest technology, in making inputs available at low cost. So MSP, those who say MSP is not needed, Said it is not needed when maybe after 10, 20 years, if we have done all this, if the farmer is able to get a return from the market price, which is adequate. So the point that I'm making, so many villages we have studied in India, that the average income of the small farmer is already so low. That means we are already in a state of agrarian distress. In this situation of low income, now fertilizer price shock or fuel price increase or flooding or cyclone, this is means that that small farmer is just pushed back further into deprivation. All the climate scientists are talking about resilience. What is resilience? The large, if you have income, now even if my house is damaged, next year I am able to repair it. So if you have enough income, you can be resilient. So I think that this is a very important issue, that when we are talking about Indian farmers, sometimes we lose the context, and some economists are saying there are, too much subsidy, or MSP is too high. But what is the income the farmer is earning in relation to what a small farmer, rice farmer, and in Vietnam, in Bangladesh, average farm size is 1 hectare, just like India. So it is not, we are not comparing with USA or some other country where average farm size is 100 hectares or 500. We cannot compare with them. So I think this is a very important point, that while we talk about trade and its effect, while we talk about global war, fertilizer crisis and its effect, corporate agriculture and its effect, what is the baseline here? That is what is of concern, that we are starting from a very low level of income. Second point I want to make here, which is again based on our village studies. We studied Andhra long ago in 2005-06. We are going back to Telangana, to Bhimavaram district this year. So maybe next year we will come to Andhra side, Telangana side. We thought of doing both, but it is too much work. So what our village studies are showing, that is my last point, is that there is huge inequality. I think all of you know there are Dalit farmers, there are tenant farmers, there are marginal farmers, and there are very big capitalist farmers. So just to give one example, in this village in Tamil Nadu that we studied, famous village of Venmani, the ratio of income of the lowest farmer in lowest income and highest income is like 1:100, 100 times. This person is making negative income and somebody else is making, lakhs. Same thing in UP. So what, and I can give examples from other villages. So what the message is, that when we study agriculture or farming, government of India or even government of Telangana, I don't know, if you take an average value, that is the 100 people sitting in this room, we just take average income, it will be very misleading. There will be 4 or 5 professors whose income will be higher, and that will make the average higher. So one of the things we have been saying in all our studies is, whether it is cost of cultivation for MSP or fertilizer price, if we take average, then we are not taking account of the poorest cultivators. The tenant cultivator who has to pay rent also, the small farmer who has to hire the tractor or does not have his or her borewell, has to rent the water. So they have so many additional costs. So taking average cost or average for any, whether it is fertilizer, whether it is input, whether it is tractor, taking averages, and I come from a statistics institute, so one thing we are saying, that is for the professors, use median at least, not mean, because that median means the 50th person. So usually in our villages 50-60% are the small farmers. So if we take the 50th person, it is the small farmer. If we take the average, we are going to be biased upwards. So this is again something that when we are making demands, etc. And this again, audience from different parts of Telangana will be able to give us information on this. So I really look forward to some comments and discussion. I will stop with that if it's okay. Thank you. Thank you.